This was the funnel I used, dear, while I baked bread. No, bitches, we're figuring this out in real time.
I have full body goosebumps and I think teared up like 4 times in this episode.
Drugs, boys, self-harm, sexual abuse. There's so much opportunity to get in trouble in Vegas. Nervous system regulation is crime prevention. It is disease prevention. It is life-saving. I did not know this information until I was a very sick adult and needed help, or until my husband was suicidal and wanted to take his life. I thought people were lying when they said they liked being a mom. It's not cool. Then we all have to feel so guilty. If we get into a school system, we change the whole world. Through breath, we heal, we embody, we regenerate. I literally led tens of thousands of women to girl boss. That shit works.
Welcome to the show, Elizabeth. I'm so excited to have you on. I've wanted to do this conversation since we were in Egypt together, but life has been lifing and you've been so busy and have so many things going on, as have I, but I'm so excited to sit down with you and do this before like the end of the year and just kind of like close this year together with a really awesome conversation, because at the start of the year, or towards the start of the year, we were in Egypt together. That's how we initially connected. And I loved your energy. It was so good to like meet you and Derek on that trip. I loved spending time with you guys. I super admire all the work that you guys do and just your stories. And I knew that I wanted to bring you on the show to talk about all of that stuff with my audience, because I just know that they're going to fall in love with you too. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here.
Yeah, I know. I fell in love with you in Egypt too. I feel like we cried, we giggled our asses off. There was cuddling, there was all of the things. It was like ceremony, cuddles, prayers, all of the above. And so I absolutely adore you. Me and Derek need to come visit you and your man and do it again.
Yeah, we want to come out west too. So when we're over that way, we'll let you guys know. What I really loved was that like how much range we could have of like going from doing something so deeply spiritual and so serious and like, you know, the tears and like really moving through stuff. And then like the next minute we would be on the boat, like rolling, laughing about just like the stupidest shit. And that's how I know like when I really vibe with someone is like when there's that intense range where you're just like, okay, this is my vibe.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, I equally want to be a 5-year-old and a priestess. Like, sorry. Like, I am both. I am all of it.
Yeah. You're like, we are an immature teenager and also a priestess. So, okay. So I kind of want to start by going back a little bit and just giving some context for your journey in your life. And then we're going to dive into, you know, breathwork, somatics, thought leadership, like all the things that you're an expert at now. But I remember like getting to know you and Derek, just being so fascinated by your origin story and how you guys grew up. And I remember on one of the bus rides just like literally asking every single question about like Mormonism, because it's something that I'm like so fascinated by. Whenever someone's like, I grew up Mormon, I'm like, oh my God, like I just want to ask them about all the rules and all the things. So we don't have to like go into that, but I think it's interesting to hear about like how you grew up and how that shaped your identity or influenced your relationships, because it obviously impacted a lot for you.
I mean, long story short, I grew up in Las Vegas in the hood, like literally the hood. My family still lives in the hood. And like, I was the only, being a white girl in my school was the minority. And so like, I grew up in a neighborhood where everyone, like, there was a lot of hardship. I mean, that's just the honest truth. Like, there was a lot of hardship and there was lots of opportunities to get in trouble. And I was in a public school, and I feel like different neighborhoods and different cities, the public schools have a totally different dynamic depending on what kind of neighborhoods and like, you know, how affluent the kids are there. And so I was a troubled kid from 12 years old on up, but I was born and raised Mormon. I always say like, my family is like, and I mean, I'm biased, right? I'm giving my human experience. I feel like I am no longer a practicing Mormon. I will say that, but I have a lot of love and respect for honestly, any religion or any spiritual belief. I think whatever you hold sacred is beautiful to you. And if that evolves, that's beautiful too. But my dad to me is the idea of like probably what actually being Christ-like would be like. Like, he genuinely loves all people. He's accepting of all people, no matter your background, no matter your race, no matter your religious beliefs. He's also a yoga teacher. He's a hike guide. He's a medicine man. He would host rendezvous with my grandpa and like gather community and troubled youth and help them. So I grew up like camping, setting up like these like whole campouts with my family, serving people. You know, we were also probably some of the people that needed to be served too. But like my dad just always was like, when you serve other people, like you make it not about you and it's like healing for you too. And so my dad was a blue collar worker. worked for 30 years for the water district. He did something with pipes in the ground in the street. I don't know, water, welding, something with that. Like he came home in a blue jumpsuit covered in black something every day. Like he worked with his hands. And then at night, he taught yoga at the YMCA in a little herbal shop. And on weekends, he led hikes out in the mountains. So we would come with him to the YMCA for yoga. And then on the weekends with hikes. And that was how I grew up. And then I got in a lot of trouble growing up: drugs, boys, self-harm, sexual abuse. I mean, there's so much opportunity to get in trouble in Vegas. Like it's kind of scary. And so I found lots of it. I was quite the opportunist, but I was just hurting. Like I had like kind of a crazy childhood with family dynamics and things. Like we all loved each other, but there was a lot of pain and trauma, and just we're all doing our best. And sometimes our best is kind of a mess. And that was what it was. And I then ended up being sent away with different families, different schools. So I was raised some of my adolescence in Utah. I had a woman who took me in, who I love and call her my other mom. Her name is Angie. My son calls her Nana. She took me in and became a legal guardian of me, and just like was such an angel in my life. And I lived on a farm with her in Utah, and she lives like 20 minutes down the street from me. And she just like showed me like, honestly, like what being Christ-like was like outside of religion. Like I just saw like good people existing outside of religion. And that was really interesting for me. It like expanded my paradigm of like what good and bad is, what right and wrong is, and like what just like love and integrity and service like looks like in so many different forms. And then I dropped out of high school and I had a hairdresser mentor me. I mean, that was my, like, I'm a hairdresser by trade, and I've turned into a healer and life coach and speaker. But I'm a hairdresser at heart. Like that's really where my career started. And I had a hairdresser who also was a mentor of mine. He did my hair for good grades on a report card from 12 years old to 16. And I would bring in my report card and I would get my hair done. And at 16, when I dropped out of high school, he said, "How about a job?" And I became a hairdresser. So I had a lot of angels in my life, honestly. Like I feel so guided. Like I feel like so many people drop, like always somebody drops in at the right time. And I've learned to just have faith in that. And I give that back. I try to be an angel to a lot of other people.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that part of the story, that was kind of the motivation for you to like get on track and get good grades, was that you'd get your hair done for free. I mean, it makes so much sense with the whole mission and everything that you do. What was that next kind of phase? Because you got into a lot of trouble, got sent away, lived with these different families, but then you had these angels in your life that were kind of leading you down a path of repair. Did you just want to work in the salon because it felt like it was like the only option, and like he offered you that job? Did you ever think that you would love the work? Like how did you turn into someone who like became such an advocate and like a lover of this trade of like beauty professionals being people that really can change people's lives?
What happened was, one of the schools I was sent to at 12 years old, I hated a lot and I wanted to get expelled. So I ended up stealing box color to make my hair unprofessional, or what was it called? They called it a distraction. If you had not natural hair colors, so like a blue or, something that like you wouldn't naturally be born with, it was distracting. And so I stole color and made my hair distracting and got expelled the next day. And that's what I wanted. And I actually had another angel in my life. I feel like it's like universe, source, God, whatever you believe in, like tapping me on the shoulder, like these nudges. I always refer to them as the breadcrumbs. And it was like this moment where this woman literally tapped me on the shoulder and she was like, "You should call him." And she handed me a business card for a hairdresser. And the hairdresser worked at this famous salon in Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, which is like a huge casino on the strip, and definitely like not my parents' budget. And I called and made the appointment, and my dad took me, which is funny because he's either in his blue jumpsuit or in overalls or like crazy ass yoga clothes. Like he wears like I dress kind of like him sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm my dad. But like it's just like colorful, like harem pants, like, just ridiculous. Anyway, so he takes me into this famous salon and I get my hair done. And I was blown away by just the experience in general and like how safe I felt there. And, for me, when someone's acting out, whether it be as an adult where we're acting out in, trauma responses or different ways or self-harm or projecting or whatever, or a child, is they're looking to feel something, right? To feel safe, to feel regulated, to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be experienced in some way or experience themselves. And they don't have the emotional intelligence, whether they're 30, 50, or 3. Sometimes we don't have that to be able to know what to do with it. And so, looking back, I was trying to find it in all these spaces: church, home, school, neighborhood, friends, drugs, alcohol, all these things. And I obviously wasn't finding it. And I found part of that feeling that I had been searching for in a salon. And And my dad was like, you're not coming back. That was so expensive. He was pissed about like the mandatory color correction. Like, you will not be coming back for this mandatory thing ever again. And so I paid him back. And my dad is like also a prepper, like all these weird facts about my life. Like, so like we have lots of wood in our backyard. And so we would chop wood. So I chopped a lot of wood and I paid him back. And then I saved up the money to go back to the salon. So 6 months later, I come with a wad of cash and I'm like, what can I get for this much? And the hairdresser was like, what is happening? Where have you been? And I'm like, my dad's really pissed at you. And I had to work really hard to come back here. What can I get for this much? And that's when he struck a deal with my dad and really recognized that I was hurting. I was a kid that needed some love. And that's when he came back and said, I'm going to make you a deal. And that was when the report card deal was struck. And it wasn't for me, I think, until maybe 17 or 18, when he gave me that job opportunity, I was over the moon. Like the fact that someone saw any potential in me, like lit me up. Like I think I didn't see much potential in myself, but like I had always felt something in the salon I didn't feel anywhere else. And I couldn't really articulate it for a few years, but I started explaining it as heard, seen, and loved. And I was like, if you can make someone feel heard, seen, and loved, you can change their life. And that changes the world because that's the ripple effect. It's like one person at a time and that impacts other people. And that was like my mantra to myself. Anytime I was a beauty school teacher or was building a clientele or made my first course or opened a brick and mortar business or talked on a stage or became a mom, was like, if I can make one person feel heard, seen, and loved, I'll be able to keep this employee for a while, right? Or however long they need to be here, or I will build a clientele or whatever that was. I just have to make people feel heard, seen, and loved. And that became the mantra of like, you change the world. Everyone has the potential to make people feel heard, seen, and loved. And that's my whole TED Talk was about that idea of like, you have the power to change the world, and what you do is bigger than the thing you do. Whether you're a coach, a hairstylist, a teacher, anything, a mother, it's like that space we really hold for other people, and especially as service-based providers, right? If you're a mentor, a coach, a leader, an owner, an entrepreneur, a service-based provider, a hairdresser, a parent, it's like you're providing this service for another human, and it's so much bigger than the thing you're doing. It's the way that you make someone feel. And that became like a prayer for me, and it's always paid off. It's always worked out. It's become like, we call them HSLs, heard, seen, and loves in our company. Like, can you make someone feel heard, seen, and loved? And so that's what drew me to the salon, was the way I felt.
And then you started to be a part of that ripple effect as well, of like becoming one of those people that invited people into the chair to really like listen to them. I've heard you talk about, the idea that particularly, hairstylists are kind of like, and everyone knows this, it's kind of like a version of therapy. They're the people that really listen to you. You talk, you're there for quite a while, and it's this conversation, and it is such a healing environment. And so it obviously created this beautiful movement about how hairstylists change the world. What was the ripple effect from that, of then realizing this is an actual concept, mission, movement that I want to actually articulate and like spread farther and like build something around, from just going from, okay, I'm part of making people feel heard, seen, and loved, and I'm, changing people's lives by being this caring listener and hairstylist that is changing their life in some way, but to actually take that and go, let's actually amplify this. Let's spread it to more people. Let's make this a bigger mission and a movement. Obviously the TED Talk, I'm sure, was a huge part of that, but can you speak to actually taking that concept and now turning it into a much like wider kind of like mission and movement?
So it honestly started a long time ago. My first boss made me share my story on a hair school stage. I think I was like 17 years old. And he was like, you need to tell your story to these people. And I was like, I don't have a story to tell. And he's like, everyone has a story to tell, and you definitely have a story to tell. And so he's like, just explain how you got here. So I shared that story, and it taught me at a young age the power of storytelling and the power of everyone has a story to tell, and our stories, create a really big impact. And I think, we think of, is it Don Miller's storytelling brand or story brand, however he phases that, but like we're all familiar with the art of storytelling. And, if you're familiar with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, you're a coach, the power in symbolism and stories and all of that. And long before I was aware of any of those concepts, my story became the movement. And I think that that's a powerful thing for any human who's on a mission of any sort to make a change in the world, is your story is truly the catalyst for what you're building. It's what's amplifying your dharma. There are these initiations in our life that we go through that are aligning us to the thing that we're here to actually do and self-actualize within ourselves and actualize in our communities and in our businesses. And, every experience you go through is initiating, training, teaching, preparing, and amplifying that. And so I really started storytelling. And for years it was simple beauty schools and workshops. Then I did workshops for 4 years before I started Hair Love. I ran an education company with multi-tiers of workshops, like 10 to 30 people, small. And I did them twice a month all around the nation. And it was the first time I ever got to go places, like on a plane. I was able to take myself to New York and Hawaii and Idaho and like random places and big places. And I just told my story, and the story became this unifying thread to an entire community. And when you have an idea or a story that's unshared, it can't create momentum. When you start to share your story, it creates momentum, and momentum that starts to build a movement. And you need community. You need that amplification for something to become a movement, because a movement is bigger than just you. It's like, if I'm part of the ripple effect, well, collectively, right? Collective consciousness, we're together as this community, we're a tidal wave. And when we're unified on something, we have resonance, and that starts to all come together. And so really, storytelling is what grew this. And I was telling this story for so many years in so many spaces, big and small, behind the chair to on stages to in beauty school classrooms, like just a women's podcast someone would ask me to be on, or a little women's group, or a local business chapter, like really wherever. And I saw the humanness and the relatability and was like, wow, so many people are like me. Even if they've had a different story, we can relate in our purpose. We might relate in our pain. We might relate in our missions, and whatever that is. And so it really became the mantra of our business. It became, this is who we are. This is what we amplify. This is why we do what we do. And from that, so many lives were changed as people get to adopt your perspective. They get to adopt your codes and your frequencies. And it wasn't until probably a decade of sharing that we decided to do a movie. We did a self-produced documentary. It won some awards. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Hairstylists Change the World. And it's really not just for beauty professionals. Like, obviously that's my background, but it's about how we all make an impact. And it starts niche and it goes micro, macro, global, and it takes you on a whole journey. And then the TED came from that. And it's a simple idea, right? It's a simple idea to be like, hey, what you do is more than what you do. It's how you make people feel. But it's a powerful idea. Like, what if more bosses, more parents, more leaders really were a feel good, do good brand, And that's, another one of our values is feel good, do good. And so it just came over time, and it's all been storytelling.
I love that so much, because storytelling is I think it's an integral and key part of so many different aspects of business. For sure, the community building, for sure, creating a movement, but also like selling and marketing and like all of it. Like, storytelling is just, I think it's such a incredible skill to be able to like learn and adopt. So in that kind of vein, let's talk about this idea of thought leadership, which you brought up as being like a big part of what you do, because obviously if you're going to be a thought leader, you've got to weave in that art of storytelling into books, podcasts, something like a TED Talk, the community building, creating a movement, right? And this is something that you help a lot of brands and businesses do, is to be better thought leaders. So I'd love some of your like perspective on either how that came about for you, or even like the work that you're doing nowadays with like really major brands and companies of like weaving this in.
I think thought leadership is so important. This is what I'll say first and foremost is I think the best thought leadership comes from your spiritual practices. And I think as we heal and we self-actualize, really what we're here to say and do gets to be shared. And your voice is an instrument. It is so sacred, and not everyone has a voice. And if you have a voice, let alone if you have a platform, whatever type of privilege you do have, please use it for good. It's like so powerful. And so I think, being able to share what we think, how we see the world, what we see is better is part of being, seeing, and organizing the change, and I think the best thought leaders don't just talk, but they embody what they share, and they're organizing change, like they're not out complaining, they're out changing. And I think that is what our world is needing. I think that's what you do. I think that's what so many, really brilliant entrepreneurs are doing. And so I think thought leadership is so sacred. And I think everybody gets to be a thought leader. Like leadership is not a title or a job, right? You don't have to be a manager to be a leader. You can be any position. You could be a mom at home and really be, the thought leader in your home and in your community or your church or your group of friends. It's like you can be that pillar of whatever it is you stand for in the world and really embody your truth and your story. And so it doesn't have to be, right? So traditional, like where I'm like a coach and a speaker and an author. And like, that's what we think of traditional thought leadership. But like, I think all of us being able to step into our own frequency is really powerful and potent and important. And something that I had some mentors share with me that have stayed with me, if you're in the creativity, service-based, industry where you're creating courses or services or serving other people in any way, is there were two things. One of them was, I heard a woman say, who was an author, that the creative process is for you, the creation is for other people. And that stayed with me because the birthing of a book, the birthing of a child, the birthing of a business, the birthing of an idea is really, if you're in your spiritual practice in any shape or form, it's like a death and rebirth. It's like you have these many identity crises and who am I and what am I doing? Like the creative process is we're in the fertile void. And then what the fuck do I do here? And then where do I go from here? And then, oh, it feels so good. And then it comes to life and, oh, that's who I am. Like that is for you. Like who I became making a documentary, that is so sacred and no one else will really ever understand it other than me and those who filmed it. But the movie is now for everybody else. And it's like, I get to really surrender and release and let that have its own DNA and frequency and be its life of its own now. And so I think of that was really sacred. And the other thing that I thought of is one of my mentors, Erin Weed, I did some purpose work with her and she works with a lot of authors. I was working with her about my TED and I was like, oh shit, like, what do I do? Like, can I do this? And it was actually my good friend, Danny J, who's an incredible TED coach if you ever need one. She helped me a lot too. I was like, who am I to think I could do a TED Talk and write a book and make a movie? And I was having this whole identity crisis because they were all coming together at the same time. And I'm in a Saturn return and all the fun things. Erin said something that was just like simplified it all. And she was like, they're all just expressions of who you are. Stop putting them on a pedestal. A book is just an expression. A course is just an expression. A mastermind's an expression, an ebook. And I was like, oh my gosh, like they're just different ways to deliver something. And it's like music. What instrument do you want to play? And so that has changed expressing myself a lot for me, where I really create a neutrality around like, it's a book. Like this is how I want to express myself. Stop idolizing the book and making it feel bigger than you are or harder than you are. And so I think for anyone who's in thought leadership or wants to be, it's like, you're like, oh, I can't do a course or, oh, I can't do this. It's like, it's just an expression. Like, yes, you can. How do you want to express yourself?
Yeah, I also think like part of thought leadership, at least for me, when I think about it, is I think there's a lot of people that want to feel like they're a thought leader, but by trying to like pursue it in this certain way, they try to emulate or copy like what's working for other thought leaders that they admire and look up to. But I feel like, to really be a thought leader, it means to like innovate, to like bring new ideas into the space, to be unique. So I feel like a core part of that is like you have to be willing to say things the way that you want to say them, in your way, with your twist, with your personality attached to it, with the language that you would use, the words, the slang, whatever. Like it has to be you, because if it's just a copy or a reiteration or an emulation of the way that other people are doing it, then it's not thought leadership. It's just thought copying.
Yeah, it's just talking. Well, and I don't say this as anything other than love. Like thought leadership is something that you will naturally step into over time. Like if you're a new baby coach, like you're still embodying what the fuck you're even here to do and how you're here to do it. Like thought leadership comes with time. It comes with reps and expertise and case studies and methodologies and proven things like life experience and client experience. It's like you don't become a master coach overnight, and that's okay. Like there's no rush to this. And so I think, you want to fast track it. Well, you're going to have to take action and get out there and get messy and fail and invest, but you're also going to have to like be on a deep healing journey. Like you really cannot express what you're here to express if you're not doing that inner work. because there's too much stuff, whether it be other people's information or your own trauma or shadow or things holding you back, where we don't really know what your channel's here to say. It's not clear right now. And I think that's fine. You'll get there. And I don't think there's any rush. But I think of the woman, like, let's like think of thought leadership totally outside of what we would think it to be, like author, coach, podcast, of just, let's say, just like someone's a mom and they're raising children and they're a pillar in their community for whatever they stand for, but they like really become this embodied woman who like doesn't really give a fuck what other people think. And she loves herself and she's owning what is important to her and her boundaries. Like, that's a woman walking in like her truth and what she's here to do and what she's here to say and how she wants to raise her kids. And maybe sometimes she has to like do things differently than how her parents told her to do it. And it's like she's innovating her own way of being in her life. And so, I think in the business sense, yes, you're innovating, you're disrupting, you're doing that, but it can look many different ways.
Yeah, I also want to circle back to something that you said before, because you initially kind of mentioned that this idea that thought leadership comes from our spiritual practices. What is that? Like, I loved when you said that, because I was like, it's so true. Like, when I think about like where my best ideas come from and like where my creativity and uniqueness is born from, it's always when I'm like really connected and actually is inspiring me to like be like, okay, I've been like so busy lately. I like need that. I like want to get like more reconnected. I feel like my creativity is always so blocked when I'm just like doing and not spending enough time in the being. So it's so fucking real that like that is the portal for like opening yourself up to receive those divine downloads, ideas, creativity, whatever it's going to be. So I'd love to hear you just kind of speak to that and your own personal like practices or journey of that, like what helps open you up to these different like ideas, innovations. You have so many different, your business is like, it's deep, but it's also wide and you do so many things and there's always a lot going on. So I'm super intrigued for you of like what's important for you to keep in practice when it comes to spirituality so that you are still like open to receiving.
I think as the visionary in your business, which you are, everyone is, so we can do. You are the visionary. That is one of the most important parts of your job. It is worth having less clients and charging more money. Like, my client roster went from having 26 private clients to 8 to 12 in a year. Like, I don't get on calls like I'm a projector, I'm a 4/6 projector and a whole bunch of other things. I do quarterly one-on-ones with my clients. We have Boxer and we do other touch points, but like it is not necessary in the way we do our containers to have these like constant touch points, because I believe in being the clearest channel and like quantum leaping time. And like most of the work I do with high level women in this space is their spiritual practices and opening up their channel. I'll channel with them, teach them how to do it, bringing things, whether it's funnel strategy or team leadership or how they're going to flow better in their marriage. Like, all of these things are so intertwined, and sometimes it's years of just helping people realize how important that is and doing enough shadow work where they can even get into that. And so if you're like in the space where self-care is a foreign relationship, I want to talk to that person for 1 second. Any way that you can get into any sort of healing space to start to connect with your body. Your body is your communication center to the divine. And so my favorite practice is breathwork. I love many practices, but breathwork is one of the quickest, most quantum ways to drop into the body and to be able to connect. Through breath, we heal, we embody, we regenerate. It's so powerful. It's free. You can do it whenever. Like, if you don't have money, I'll send you some free breath work or send you some resources. Like, breath work is so accessible. And so that's what I would say first and foremost is any way that you can start to connect with the body, even if it's 3 to 5 minutes. Someone who's a little bit farther along in their practice, I'll share maybe more of what like mine looks like, and you can, play with that range. For me, somatic practices are such a sacred part of my life. If I want to be flexible and flow, if my body is rigid, if my body is unable to be open, that's going to show up in every way. If I'm unclear, like, see all the signals that your body doesn't speak in English to you saying, yo, bitch, right? It's going to speak through sensations. It's going to speak through symptoms. So you have to interpret those and start to build a relationship with those symptoms and those sensations and go, oh, I feel tightness here. Oh, I feel blocked. It's your head is not this floating device on a vehicle. Your head and mind and body and soul, they're all deeply connected. And so reconnecting with the body is huge. And that can be, I bring breath work into everything. If I'm doing embodied movement, which can look as simple as like moving your hips, the hips store so much emotion, dance, singing, we move energy through breath, sound, and movement. Period, the end. And so really dropping out of the head and into your body is starting to activate that channel. And so just somatic practices daily. And I allow myself to flow with what I feel like that day. If I feel like singing in breath, if I feel like sounding and toning, which is like making noise, or like I've had light language kind of come on board in a personal practice the last few years. I don't really share it unless I'm hosting ceremony with clients.
That just reminded me of the story. Oh my God, the story when you started speaking light language in the ayahuasca thing. I just had a flashback of that.
So funny. That's when it came on board. I was like, oh shit, here we go. I'm this weird person. No, I had so much judgment, which is just truth. But anyways, or breathing, regulating your nervous system, hot, cold therapy, but any of those things, like I sauna a lot. I do breath work every day in some form. I believe in adding self-care into what I'm already doing. Like I don't make shit hard. Like if I'm going on a walk, I'm listening to a hypnosis, a meditation, or the highest vibe song, depending what I need. If it feels like work, I don't fucking do it. I do something that feels like play, rest, digest, pleasure. These are all regulatory tools. If I feel like I'm being too serious, I need to go on a play date, like with my kid or with my husband, or go hike. Like just really start to tune into what wants to be embodied, really. And so that's where all the creativity really comes from. If you're connected to your channel, I can literally channel and write people's curriculum about topics I don't really understand when I'm in a really solid place with my clients. And so it's like, that's when you have genius, you're connected to source, you can have something else come through. And it's not, that didn't happen overnight. This is like years and years and years and years of spiritual practice and trusting it and not thinking I was crazy and starting to build a relationship with intuition. So start with your body. And somatics and rituals, like I have cacao, I work with different medicines, altars, prayer. That's part of my spiritual practice. But maybe for you, it's the Bible. I don't know, like whatever that is for you and feels aligned, really communing with that. I feel really connected with nature. If you want to be connected with the body, the feminine is the earth. So a lot of those principles, they're just part of my life. And that's how I really attribute ideas, my branding, my copy, my messaging, funnel strategies, like that all comes through a spiritual practice. My book, like it's amazing what we can tap into.
I just feel on the topic of nervous system regulation that so much in the world would change if people were more emotionally regulated. What do you wish more people understood about nervous system regulation and somatic healing and like breath work and these things? Like, what is the real benefit of that? Because I think a lot of people are still looking at it as this sort of like privileged kind of like biohacking, optimize your life, extra cherry on top, nice to do it if I have time or space or money. But like when it really comes down to it, I feel like we would solve a lot of problems in the world if people were more regulated. So what do you think is the misunderstanding or like why it's not? Well, I think it is becoming a little bit more mainstream, but we still have a lot.
People do look at it as biohacking or like, yeah, kind of like a new age concept or something. What I'll say, nervous system regulation is health. It is health. The same way we think of working out, we think of eating healthy food, we think of making sure we have our supplements, you go to the doctor, the naturopath, whatever those things are. I'll say this before I get into the science of it. And I do a lot of corporate, so I'm really good at explaining spiritual concepts in like a really friendly, palatable way. Like I know your audience is probably way more spiritual than I need to like do, but I'm going to share it that way. Nervous system regulation is crime prevention. It is literally like, it is disease prevention. It is life saving. It is literally like, it is so important for us to teach. And the reason I am an education company is how we change the world is through education, period, the end. Like if we get into a school system, we change the whole world. Like, I am in the school system of beauty and wellness. We're going to change millions of lives through it. I literally have been consulted by other high schools and stuff who are having problems with shootings. And they're like, what of your curriculum would be useful? And it's like, that would change the fucking world. Like, if you are teaching these principles in school, that is what shapes, brainwashes, creates paradigms, whether it's good or bad brainwashing, like that is what shapes the future generation. So how you change the world is through education. And so if you can get into an education system of any form, you're building a course and you're helping a community. But that's why I believe in education. Education unlocks human potential. And so educating people on nervous system regulation is so important, because without that education, they are not disempowered. They are disempowered. They do not know that they have any say, that they have any sovereignty, that they have any resources. And when people don't feel resourced, they live a victim life and they are subject to the system of what they are told to do, which is really great for whatever system's agendas, right? Like, it's like you have total control when people don't have autonomy and they don't have sovereignty and all of that. And so I think as thought leaders, as disruptors, we're here to like fucking break the mold and be like, you have power. And that's what we're in age of Aquarius. Like, systems are just fucking crumbling. They're falling down. The guru, the concept of all of that. And it becomes a circular leadership and this rise of sovereignty within. And so to me, you cannot heal and you cannot be in your power in a dysregulated body. When you are dysregulated, the autonomic functions inside of your body, this beautiful, intelligent system that you have, are fucked up. Like, they have all of their amazing intelligence being sent to survival mode. So literally what happens when I go into dysregulation, and so many people live in dysregulation. And if you don't know what that is, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So when you are in that state, which can happen by reading a post on the news, swiping through Twitter, looking on TikTok, worrying about a bill, future-paced fear, anxiety. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything wrong. Things can dysregulate you. And if you don't have emotional hygiene, you don't know how to take care of your own health. And most people just don't know how. It's not that they don't want to. It's not that they're stupid. It's not that they're anything. It's they literally don't know. I did not know this information until I was a very sick adult and needed help, and literally was like on my knees being like, what do I do? Or until my husband was suicidal and wanted to take his life. Like, we shouldn't wait till we're in these scenarios to find basic health and well-being. And part of normalizing this type of emotional and mental and physical health is seeing that they're all connected and the body keeps score. That's absolutely critical. And that mindset work doesn't fully work without the other parts, because they all impact each other and they're all deeply connected. And so we have to start by educating people. And so I think when you are dysregulated, whether it be something really intense is happening, or you're swiping on your phone and you see something and your body experiences it as intense and you're triggered, you're dysregulated, all your autonomic functions put you into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it literally changes your heart rate, where your blood is being pumped to your different extremities, your eyes dilating or not, salivation in your mouth. You do not have full access to literally like clear thinking, logic, reason. You go into instinct mode. We call that trauma responses, or just like being triggered and reacting versus responding. You literally don't have access to all of you. So you're working with this small little amount of your full power, and it's being squeezed through the cracks. And then what happens is, when we don't know how to recover, when the body doesn't know how to recover, we get sick. We manifest disease, illnesses, autoimmune, and we're not making decisions informed by a healthy, whole, regulated self. We're making decisions informed out of instinct, out of survival mode, and the body staying in that state gets burned out, and you continue to get sick, and then the recovery becomes much harder. So when we teach people nervous system regulation, emotional, mental, physical hygiene, they know how to recover faster and they can come back to their center faster. And breathwork is one of the quickest ways to do it. It's free. It's accessible at any moment. It's almost like the divine gave you these tools innately. Isn't that wild? So that's my rant on it. It's absolutely crucial, and it's important that everyone knows the basic skills.
Yeah, so important. I love the way that you explained that too. It's crime prevention. It's so much more than just this like cool, like trendy, like biohacking thing to do. I feel that so much. And my friend Susie, who does the hypno breathwork inside of my programs and masterminds, she always says like breathwork is the tool that she didn't know was always right underneath her nose, which is so sweet. And it's so true. And I know that you mentioned you being really sick and needing help, and your husband going like having really scary thoughts and being depressed. Like, I know that breathwork has been a tool for both of you that you sort of in some ways attribute to saving your lives. And you obviously have a certification program around breathwork. Like it's a huge part of, your mission and the work that you do. Can you share about like the discovery of like what changed when you started practicing breathwork? Like what was that like when you discovered the tool and then you started using it? Like what did it help you change and evolve in your life?
So when we started our healing journey, I had life coaches. I always invested in mentors, very much more like professionally based, but like I would go like Tony Robbins deep, where he's like very like motivational and he uses NLP and all the things, but like not like deep spiritual concepts. Do you know what I mean? And so like I'd been on that path, but I was very much in the hustle mindset, the never quit mindset. Shocking that I got so sick. Not saying that's a Tony Robbins thing or not. I'm just saying like I did get into personal development, just not the path I'm in this deep now. So we were open to that. But this type of healing, I didn't even know existed. I'm going to be fully transparent. Like I had no idea. Like I knew the word trauma, but like what was trauma healing? I don't know. Like I didn't know the word somatic. I didn't know what my nervous system was. I definitely didn't know how to regulate it. I did not know what breathwork was. I'd never even heard of it before. I knew what meditation was, but I thought it was just like being quiet. And like, obviously I like would do visualizations and that I could do. And I would even guide visualizations, but like, I didn't really understand, like I had like some human design and things like that. And so for me, it came out of desperation, and me and Derek called it living room healing, where you're like, I'm about to do some weird shit in a circle with some people in their living room because I don't know what else to do. I've gone to the doctors, I've gotten the labs, I have some diagnoses that are not very cute or demure. What do we do now? And so that was our introduction to breathwork and actually psilocybin. And we were recommended both by a friend who was actually in corporate and had shared it with us when he knew we were struggling with Derek wanting to end his life and just like those types of thoughts and just being constantly depressed and like it's very hopeless. You don't know what to do. And I think like for the person going through that, that's so real. But for the people who are also supporting someone going through that, I think that's not talked about. Like I have had so much PTSD from those things. I have had so much healing, like being afraid you're going to lose your partner and that type of dysregulation, and like realizing what you can actually control and what you can't and what's healthy and those boundaries. Like that's a whole podcast in itself. And so he's like, have you heard of psilocybin? It's magic mushrooms. It's not just used for, seeing psychedelic shape. Yeah, like you can actually heal and it creates new neural pathways in the mind. And so we read a book, I think it's a movie now, How to Change Your Mind. I think it's on Netflix now, but it wasn't when we heard about this. So we read the book because of that. I grew up Mormon, like those were drugs, like those were bad, And like I'd never heard the word medicine, like for something like that. We had lots of herbs in my family growing up, but nothing that was like mind altering. So that was when we were like, fuck it. Like if he's going to die or always live like this with the fear of it and like be this emotionally like all over the place and I'm so sick, like what do we have to lose? Like we could like, what's the point? And I think like you can have 99 problems, but the second your health is a problem, you have one problem. Nothing else really matters. And so we had a local teacher who did somatics and breathwork and psilocybin. And that's how we were introduced to breathwork. And I hated it. Hated it. And my nervous system was nowhere near able to sit still. So that was my introduction, and she would force me to breathe with her, and I just hated it. Then I had our next relationship coach that we invested in, and he would make me do more breath work. And I'm like, why are all these people making me breathe? Like, stop it. I thought this was coaching. And so he kept doing all these somatics with us. And within 6 months, I had started losing weight. Within 6 months, I literally thought me and Derek would uncouple, and we just didn't want each other to like not be okay. Like we loved each other, but we're like, this is so unhealthy. Like let's separate, but let's get each other in a stable spot. And we had totally fell back in love. Like I had connected with my inner child. I met his inner child. Like I just saw him with so much more softness. I was able to see my patterns and my lineage and traumas and how they were showing up in my life, and to start take accountability and realize there was solutions, and that what was me and what was other. I was able to not feel so responsible to keep him alive all the time and realize I actually cannot control that. And this is his path and his medicine. And that felt less hard to say. Like, I was like, that's okay. Like, this is his initiation. This is his stuff. You know, this is my stuff. And we fell back in love, and we decided to, later that year, we ended up getting engaged. My son transitioned so much. He has ADHD. He's very neurospicy, probably on the spectrum, to be honest, in many ways, but like, he's hilarious and brilliant and genius. But I just have struggled to know how to parent him. And I feel like my healing journey was finally the ease that I had never experienced in motherhood. I thought people were lying when they said they liked being a mom. I was like, they're all lying. Like, why do they lie? Like, it's not cool. Like, then we all have to feel so guilty. And I got to re-choose him. I got to reconnect back to so many beautiful things. My family's gone on healing journeys. My mom, who has also struggled with wanting to end her life her whole life, and so much mental health and abuse and things. My dad's becoming a breathwork instructor, and he co-leads retreats with me. Like, it has rippled in ways. My employees started going on healing journeys. I mean, like, it is like priceless. It's literally priceless. I had clients leave, and I had new clients come in. I had some team leave and new team come in. Like, it just shifted what needed to be shifted. And it's such a blessing. Like, and we all have access to it, you know? So it changed a lot.
Changed a lot. It changed a lot. It's such a medicine, isn't it? It's so wild when you come across it. And I think there's a lot of people probably listening to this that have heard of breathwork, that know about breathwork, that maybe even think that, you know, they've done breathwork if they've done some sort of like pranayama and yoga. But like, when you actually go in and you have your first like deep spiritual experience with breathwork, and it cracks you open and you see shit and realize shit that you have not touched before, it's like a whole new path unfolds, and like a whole new version of life awaits. So it's been such a medicine and magic in my life too. And that's why I love sharing it, you know, with my clients and the people in my world, because I know the healing power of it. So I love that that's like such a big part of your mission. And for anyone that's listening that's, you know, maybe thinking about getting certified in breathwork, like obviously that's something that you guys do, which is incredible as well.
Yeah, and we can make something special for your people if you want to.
Yeah, for Glow, that would be amazing. Yeah, we'll figure something out and drop it in the show notes for you guys, because I know there'd be a lot of people interested in that. But I really appreciate that, you know, that really raw piece of honesty there of saying that you felt like everyone was lying when they said they loved being a mom. I mean, I'm sure there's so many moms out there that are also struggling and feeling like, when is this going to get easier, or am I supposed to be happier? Or even if they like certain parts of it but like don't like other parts of it, feeling bad about that. And obviously you became a mom really young, and I'm sure that was its whole own challenge. And you know, having a child with someone that you decide to no longer, you know, be in partnership with, like there's a lot there. But what were some of the unexpected challenges and also gifts that you feel like that journey of motherhood brought you, becoming a mom so young?
Motherhood is really cool for those who choose or feel called to do it. You know, I think we have many rebirths and deaths in our life, and it's a big one. It's a big initiation of that. You rebirth yourself when you birth your child. And I think that the gift, I'll start with that, is it makes you reprioritize everything immediately. Like immediately. Like anyone who's running a business who's a mom, all of a sudden they get 10 times more things done in less amount of time, because you don't have an option. Your capacity overnight diminishes like completely. No matter how great you are or healthy or whatever, your child demands your care and they need it, and it's important. And so I think the gift is the motherly instincts to evolve and to make it work when you have no other choice is amazing. It's like this access to strategy and systems and support and help and spirituality that like it just drops in. It's like all of a sudden you work half the amount and make the same, and you don't know how, but you had no other choice. And so the stars align. And I think that's the gift in motherhood, is you will figure it out. It always works itself out in every season. Like they are evolving all the time, and each season brings that gift of like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but you always figure it out because they need you and you're their mother. And so it's like that, I think, is really cool. And I think a gift of the divine feminine is like our flexibility, our fluidity, our flow, our ability to be in collaboration and support. And that's why I deeply believe women's business strategy should look completely different than a men's business strategy. It's why you do the work you do and I do the work I do. Like I do not coach masculine business strategy because I have a womb womb and I have different energetics and I want to be healthy and I want to work with them. And so I think that's the gift. I think the challenge is it brings up shadow work. It just does. It's initiation, whether it be some of the basic things I think we think of, how am I going to pay for this? Time, body image, your whole vessel changes, evolves. Who you were dies and a new woman is born. And so it's like, I think we want to have another baby at some point. There'll be a very large gap. I am aware. My son is 11, but it'll be fine. I was a single mom. Things took a long time. It is what it is. Like, I now consciously will move into motherhood knowing it's going to be a portal that's going to shake me to my core, and I can't plan perfectly to know what that looks like, and to just surrender and to have help. You know what I mean? Like that is all that I know. And I think that that's good advice moving into it, is like, let it be. If you've ever sat in ceremony work or medicine work or breath work, it's like that moment where you go fine and you give in. It has to be that. And your body will make you do that in pregnancy. And I think the sooner you just give into it, you're not fighting it. As birth is like that as well. So I think it's a metaphor in so many ways for how we birth things. But I think the shadow work is the sticky part, but it's the gift as well. And I think the gift is you fucking figure it out in less time than you thought you could. And it will catapult your life in so many ways. And it's like a Saturn return. What's not supposed to stay is going to leave. It's like a nodal return and a Saturn return had a baby. It like pushes you towards your destiny, but like lets go of anything that can't come into the next chapter. It's like, yeah, it's its own portal. It's wild.
Fuck. It's like where everything that needs to fall away falls away. And that's painful. Like when things start to change and like you're like, no, but I wanted that. And why are they leaving? And this and that. But then it's like, it's all there for the initiation of like what's coming next. We can't end this conversation without talking about this last topic, because I love that you've been posting about this and sharing about this idea of workaholism and ending the girl boss era, because I think it probably ties a lot into the journey of motherhood. I think there's a lot of women that become moms and they realize, oh, like priorities are different and this needs to look different and I can't afford to be hustling and burning out anymore. Yeah, talk to me about that and kind of what some of these like keys to ease are that you've discovered and why you've gone through this portal of like, it's the end of the girl boss era for me.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, ease has kind of been the theme of my life, which is funny because in my human design chart, I'm like literally born to struggle and then teach ease the rest of my life. And so, like, that makes sense. My book coming out is called Show Me How Easy It Is. My mastermind is all feminine business energetics. Breath work was what was the catapult for all of it. My health journey was literally the end of my girl boss era by force. My wellness program for businesses came as a result of like how I now lead my business. So they all, are one and the same, just different expressions, as we would say. But, for me, I had to have the universe scream at me. And I think there are some of us listening, you also had to have your world come crashing down. I like to listen as soon as I can now and try to listen to whispers, because it's not fun when it's screaming and yelling and flames are going up. And so I do my best to do that. And so far that has helped so much. The first time really wasn't listening. So, for me, it was my health journey. It was like, you can't girl boss anymore. And I will be fully honest, I literally led tens of thousands of women to girl boss. Like when I say I was a successful girl boss, that shit works. Like, of course it works. And like, I taught lots of other people to make it work, and we all had adrenal fatigue. Like I led the movement of like queen adrenal fatigue. We had fucking queen stickers, girl boss stickers. Like I've been girl bossing since 2014. I was selling USBs with my course on it. Like that's how long I've been slinging this shit. I get you. It lived in me. And for me, it wasn't until I got sick that I had some of my coaches and friends be like, does it have to be this hard? Like, you're so like, when something comes up, you put your head down and go to work. Like there couldn't be a way that it's easier. Like you assume before the way even needs to be hard that it's going to be hard, and you have your sword out. And it's like, I was ready to fight at all moments. And you can't really drop that sword without a healing journey, because your body doesn't feel safe. I had literally protected myself through And when I say workaholism, I mean workaholism. Like I was not like, I'm not being cutesy. Like I was full on addicted to work. Like I couldn't stop. I was on trips and I couldn't enjoy it. Like the amount of dysregulation I had was like on a cellular level for so many years, which is why I got arthritis and all of these other pre-diabetic and chronic migraines and chronic fatigue and inflammation and all these markers. Like I was literally, and I couldn't stop. Even when someone said that is why I couldn't get myself to stop. And that's why breath work made my ass stop, and psychedelics, because it is deep root work. We're like dealing with root cause and not just like, here's a little mind frame for you. And this is like part of like how I've survived my whole life. And so I think a lot of the girl boss era is programming. I think a lot of it is just like what gurus and we've been taught to teach, because most business is taught by men, and that's fine. I think that medicine, we could go on a lot of things are not built for a feminine being in our world, and that's okay. The feminine is rising. We're finding more harmony. We're finding balance. But with that being said, we did it. We tried it. Adrenal fatigue, it turns out not that fun and not sustainable. I think when we can honor the feminine energetics, the seasonality, the cyclicity, the nature, the hormones, there's a whole other level of superpowers that are unlocked. As you know, you teach this work as well. And that's why I so believe in all the spiritual practices and connecting so deeply with the feminine, is there's so much unwinding to do for us to feel safe embodying this, because of how much programming generationally and trauma is passed down, that it really is chain breaking that has to be done for the girl boss era to truly end in our nervous systems, for us to create new proof that this is not only safe, but this is sustainable. And I think there's some of us who are going ahead, have gone ahead and follow them like the lighthouses. So you don't have to do this alone, but this is a new era. I mean, we are the first era of women making this type of money in a digital age, also being moms, also being wives, finding polarity and balance. And if it feels like the unknown terrain, like you're pioneering, like that is why it feels that way. And that's why I rely on science and spiritual practices to teach us universal truths and things that we can connect with as a core, as we are navigating the unknown of AI and technology and funnels and having babies and marriages and all of this stuff. And so it's not like our grandmothers did this before us. And she's like, this was the funnel I used, dear, while I baked bread. Like, no, bitches, we're figuring this out in real time. But what we do know is the spiritual practices, these ancient modalities. We do know how to take care of our bodies. And if we can remember ourselves and be a channel, we have to innovate. So feminine leadership is innovation, because it has not really been able to rise and lead, especially in this balance of business and motherhood and all of it. And so it's new terrain, and there's definitely a way forward. And, it's just,
I literally got goosebumps when you said like we're pioneering it, because it's so true. It's so real. Like we don't give ourselves enough credit for like, we're literally changing the fucking paradigm of how the world works and what it means to be a woman and what we're capable of and how we can make money and the impact that we can have and the ease that we can create simultaneously in our lives. Like, fuck, like it's powerful. It's really powerful.
Something I share in my book is it's all about ease. My book is Show Me How Easy It Is. My mastermind is all about ease as well. And breathwork is what returns us to ease. That state of recovery is ease is a state, not a destination. And so it's a state in our nervous systems. It's the calm in the storm. It's the trust, the faith, that connection that gets your practices. And so ease is a state, not a destination. And I think when we're hustling, we're waiting for,
the destination of ease. If I put in all this work, if I do all this now, if I hustle now, if I struggle now, if I sacrifice now, then I will arrive at the destination of ease. No, cancel, wrong, delete.
Yes. And so we have to unwind the paradigms. And it's really hard when we're unwinding them when we have proof that it works, because we're like, oh, fuck. And I can't tell you how many fires, how many ceremonies, how many breathworks I've sat at prayer and been like, please give me the bravery and the courage to literally lead in my feminine and show myself it's all not going to crumble. Like I literally said that prayer before my marriage. I've said that prayer in my business and ayahuasca. Like, show me the feminine rising within, and that she can still accomplish all that she's born, knows she's meant to do, like live her dharma, but in this way of of her softness and that it's strength, because it feels brave, because there's so much shit that has to come off to let her be. And then it's raw. And so it's why our masterminds, our circles, our sisterhood, our coaches, our safe spaces, our practices are so important to fortify that, because the world, it's not fully normalized in the world yet, because we're normalizing it. We're the ones doing it. Please help.
Please help. Yes. I'm literally like getting tears in my eyes as you're talking about this, because like this is the work that we do, right? This is the remembrance of like why it's so important. And there's so many women that will be listening to this that are part of this movement, or they need to be, or they want to be. And so you're being called forward to help us make this change. We deserve it. Our kids deserve it. Future generations deserve it. The world deserves it. Your womb deserves it. And we need more people leading in this way. So, wow, I have full body goosebumps, and I think like I've teared up like 4 times in this episode. I just love you. I love you so much. You're such a magical human. You're doing such incredible work in the world. I'm constantly in awe of all that you and Derek are doing together and everything. Just even seeing you guys, over the past 8 months, like we were talking about before we jumped on, so much is happening behind the scenes for you guys with, your companies and these big projects. And yeah, you are a mover and a shaker for sure, always have been. And it's amazing to see you continuing to do really incredible things and make such a big and wide impact, while also, leading yourself and leading others in this way. It really is like Elizabeth is an expander for you guys. If you're wanting to be in your feminine leadership and still be focused on your mission and make an impact in the world, she's someone that you want to look up to and that you want to follow. So thank you for being here and sharing your story. I love you so much. Let everyone know where they can find you and like where you're hanging out these days. Obviously, podcasts, socials, all the things.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you. And I feel the same way about you, sister, like total soul sister. So glad we got to bond so deeply in Egypt. And I just think what you're doing is so important, and like it's growing so much, and it's literally just getting started, which is crazy because you're already like doing such huge, incredible things. But hey, we're both young. We still have lots of work to do in the world, and babies to bring in, and businesses and women to help. And it's amazing to watch you do your thing. And you did your podcast is incredible. Like I'm just in awe. So thank you for having me on your show. Finding me, I think the easiest way is just my Instagram. It's Hey Elizabeth Faye. Same my website, Hey Elizabeth Faye. And you can kind of go down the rabbit hole there if you want to go into glow breath work or whatever. We'll come up with something special, me and Sam, for you guys. And yeah, just thank you for holding space for all of this.
Yes, it's been such an honor. We'll link everything for you guys in the show notes where you can find Elizabeth, and we'll drop a little offer for you guys for Glow Breathwork if you're interested in getting certified. If you loved this episode and it made you think of someone in your life that would love to hear this conversation, please copy the link, send it to them in a message, let them know you were thinking of them. And if you do share this episode, take a screenshot, just put it up on your Instagram stories. Make sure that you tag both Elizabeth and I so that we can get into the DMs with you and chat. I'm sure Elizabeth would love to know who's finding her and coming over to her community from Makeshift Happen. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next week. Bye.